If you accept that disinformation narrative, that we don't have anything that can move like that, humans don't, a priori, you're going to reach the conclusion that everything that those objects are doing and have been doing are alien. CIA is using advanced tech to stage false alien abductions in Brazil and Argentina, targeting their word, peasants, for its psychological warfare value. It's in black and white. Media corporations are vertically and horizontally integrated into this covert system. And if you actually speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, you will be canceled. I think we're at an inflection point where it's going to get out there that we're not alone. The problem is what we can get into in a little bit, cosmological confusion. People don't know what's extraterrestrial versus what's ours versus what's from another dimension that's extra dimensional and not extraterrestrial. And there's some fine lines between the two, but very important ones. I think we're going to get into a period where clarification of which of these phenomena, plural, are actually from another star system and which are concocted by counterintelligence operations for the purpose of gaslighting the public, but more importantly, inducing fear and trying to build up a global military-industrial complex response to a threat from outer space. That's always been the objective of the secrecy, by the way. That's number one. Number two has been hiding the technologies that would terminate oil and nuclear power, and for that matter, wind and solar, with the very advanced energy and propulsion technologies, which have been mastered for well over 80 years. But this is why we did the documentary, The Lost Century, which everyone can see for free on Tubi or Amazon Prime or wherever. So I think this is going to be the big challenge. And what my job is, as I see it, I mean, I'm a retired trauma emergency doctor, but I'm focused full time on trying to get the correct information to the president and senior leaders in the House and Senate, which we have done. There's a countervailing disinformation campaign headed up by a number of people that keep neutralizing that clarity for the purpose of obfuscating the truth. I like the name of your show, Unveiled. I always say that a big part of what we're doing is pulling the veil back on this sort of labyrinthine system of secrecy and black budget programs that have been largely corporatized, that have confused the public and continue to gaslight the officials in government, not only here, but also in the United Kingdom and Canada and other places where I'm working. So I think this is a global problem. It's not just a US problem. And that's what we're trying to address. And I have to walk very carefully here because I've been a senior source of intelligence and advice for the group doing this. But there's a federal law enforcement initiative at a very high level and a very secret level that has concluded what some of the members of Congress, like Mr. Burleson and others that I've worked with, have concluded, and that is that there is a transnational criminal organization that is running these programs that would make the mafia look like a minor law enforcement problem. And they have reached that conclusion, and that there are serious investigations. Now, this also brings up a number of questions, and that is, you can pass every law and go through everything that's going on now in the Congress with the Senate and the House, the National Defense Authorization Act, which is the Defense Spending Bill, just for short. We hope it's non-kinetic, in other words, peaceful, but there needs to be preparation to do it under any conditions. And the reason for that is that the organization that have the technologies they reverse engineered from extraterrestrial vehicles, which was pretty successfully achieved by October of 1954. We had mastered gravity control, gravity wave propulsion systems by October 1954. So I was not a twinkle in my father's eye when that was achieved. I was born in 1955. I just turned 70. And so what I've found is that the technologies are in the hands of an unsupervised and rogue element that have abused them and are an existential threat, not only to our national security, but also to world peace and security. And it is something that is coming to a head only because as disclosure goes forward, there's a risk of a reaction from that group, the reactionaries, that could be very dangerous. The other big red line that's out there no one's talking about, and this is probably the biggest one, which I began to talk about some years ago, and it's now reached the point where I've gotten confirmation from 3 different sources inside intelligence operations at various bases where operations connected to UFOs, UAPs, extraterrestrial craft, reverse engineering are, and that is that these technologies in the mid-50s were pretty amazing, actually, in terms of things that look like a UFO that can lift up, levitate, and fly off, right? And everyone would think that it was an alien craft, quote unquote. And those have been used in false flag operations and deceptive operations for decades. But what people don't realize is that there's a concomitant increase in the biological as well as electromagnetic weapon technologies from studying extraterrestrial materials that have now been turned against not only humans in some cases, but are being turned against the extraterrestrial vehicles and their people. And that there is a clear warning that's gone out that we've reached the point of being a threat to other places in space due to quantum potential weapons and scalar systems that go faster than the speed of light that have been weaponized, and that these programs are actually endangering all life on Earth. You cannot overstate the risk of this. Now, neither the president nor the Congress have a full grasp of the problem yet. They're beginning to, actually, very much so. But it's going to take some action, and the action is very intimidating because I don't know if I'll just tell you a story. It's apocryphal, but it's illustrative of the problem. 2 or 3 years ago, I was with some guys who had been in special forces, which for those who don't know would be your top military operations like Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Green Berets, etc. And they are been asked to do something about this. And I said, well, here's what you're going to encounter. You're not, the mainstream Pentagon, our top special forces, have technologies circa 1940s, 30s, 40s, meaning jets, helicopters, Humvees, Jeeps, or the equivalent, tanks, various other weapons, right? You're going up against an organization that have technologies that have been developed over the last 80 years, since the mid-40s, that would make your toes curl if you were a military strategist. And I work with those people. So tactically, there's a big problem. And that is there's a mismatch between the constitutional government of the United States and the Pentagon, the legal part of it, and the illegal black part of it that have technologies that are thousands of years, and I'm not exaggerating, ahead. So then how do you resolve this problem? So there's a number of strategies that have to be employed. Legal ones, investigative ones, criminal prosecutions, the invoking of the RICO statute, the Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization law that was passed in 1970 to take down the mafia. Those all have to come into play. The Congress is going to have to be supportive, and more importantly, the White House, the Oval Office, are going to have to approve certain executive orders, which I've already provided to them. And if this doesn't get resolved, I think within a couple of years, we're going to be in a world of hurt. So I think that there isn't 80 more years to piss away, excuse my language, or even 30 more. When I first briefed President Clinton's CI director in 1993, that's when I learned that the president and the CI director at that time were being blocked and had not been read into or briefed on the matter. And I didn't believe it. The FedEx I have, it's in our archive. And actually, people want to see documentation on everything I'm going to talk about in this show, go to Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive. It's dpiarchive.com. It's free. It's 35 years of accumulated evidence, documents, terabytes of information, 115 or 20 whistleblowers' testimony with their name, rank, and serial number, as well as their video testimonies. It's all in there. It's way more than anything the House or the Senate will ever have in front of them, in my opinion, at least at this point in the nearby future. But what I discovered was the chain of command got severed, and there was a decapitation, if you will, or a little bit of a coup d'etat that happened in the late 1950s when Eisenhower inadvertently lost control of these covert operations dealing with the retrieval and reverse engineering of extraterrestrial vehicles that had begun in the 40s. So in the late 50s, Eisenhower wanted to have an open contact event, much like what our CE5 contact concept is, but governmental. And the ETs wanted to do it peacefully, and they wanted us to get rid of all these thermonuclear weapons and make peace on the planet. And there are a number of reasons for that. One is, I think these civilizations have a long-term interest in the planet that predates modern civilization as we know it. And number two, I think that when we detonate an atomic or a thermonuclear weapon, it sends out an electromagnetic pulse that has within it a scalar signal, which just visualize, instead of a wave like this, it's a point that goes out longitudinally at multiples of the speed of light, and it disrupts trans-dimensional interstellar communications and transportation. In other words, it's actually disruptive. It sort of rips through the universe that way. And this was not appreciated when we detonated the first atomic bomb, but boy, did we find out quickly thereafter, because there were swarms of ET craft and surveillance around all of our nuclear facility. And it's not because they were hostile. They realized that humans had reached a technological point of being able to destroy the whole planet, but also be a threat elsewhere. Now you couple that with us going out into space in the 1950s. Sputnik was 1957. And then we went and progressed all the way to the lunar landing in 69 within 12 years. So they also knew that a covert program had reverse engineered their technologies, and that we had craft beginning in the late 50s, early 60s that were capable of not interstellar, but going around our solar system. So before we landed on the moon, we had what were called ARVs, or alien reproduction vehicles, that were zipping around out in our solar system. And we have firsthand testimony to this effect, by the way, in our archive. So at that point, the president and the oversight key people, the Gang of Eight, as they call them in the Congress, pretty much lost control of these covert operations. And this was the genesis of Eisenhower's famous speech, "Beware the military-industrial complex," because it will become a threat to our democratic way of life and our national security. He saw that firsthand. He did not refer to the UFO issue. But at the same time, he realized what he was up against. The only president that tried to go to distance against this cabal was Jack Kennedy, and it certainly got him assassinated. There's no question about that. The next president who I think probably did the most to try to do this, ironically, was President Clinton, who's CIA director I briefed. In 94, 95, they started a project after I had the meetings, and we provided a lot of documentation to the administration, a briefing document that was about 500 pages long. Mr. Clinton reviewed this very, very assiduously, by the way, and he determined that they needed to stand up an operation known as Team Red, which would be a group of special forces guys who would take on what they called Team Black, meaning the illegal programs, now called legacy programs, that are sitting on all this tech and are keeping all this secret. And Team Blue was just a conventional military. Unfortunately, that entity, that Team Red entity, was under-engineered, meaning it was not able to take on what I described previously a few minutes ago, and most of them were killed or they were absorbed into these black projects. There are some that are still living who, when they were very young, were put in the Team Red, trying to fix this problem, who now are in Team Black, who have come forward and are working with us and with law enforcement. So, but now they're, of course, 50s instead of 20, and they have a huge amount of knowledge and experience, but they're also very aware of the use of lethal force and so-called wet works, which are assassination, targeted killings wet comes from blood. And that, they have to be very careful. And one of the things we're trying to also set up is surveillance around all these high-valued whistleblowers, and anyone who would make a move towards them, we will catch them red-handed. We, not me, but the people who are in senior law enforcement. So these are all things going on kind of sub rosa, behind the scenes, that I just want to address. And then there are the things you're going to hear about in the Congress that are the normal dog and pony show with ufology and whatnot. But I think that for the most part, we're at a key turning point. We're going to have to choose. And one of the president's friends told me that he really wasn't wanting to take this on right now. And I said, well, he's not going to have a choice. As I see it, there's not going to be a choice. This is going to happen on his watch, and it's going to happen well before in 2028. This is only 2025. And like it or not, this is all going to come out, and it has to be managed properly. If it's managed improperly, it would be much worse than the problems we had with COVID. So, and this has been said to me and understood to be the fact by some senior intelligence people with the administration. And then they realize what's really going on, and that everything we've been saying for 35 years is true, and that it's a massive national security problem with an organization and constellation of corporate and quasi-governmental interests that absolutely trump, no pun intended, the capacities of the conventional legal constitutional government. And that includes surveillance, by the way. I've been in SCIFs, the secure compartment and information facilities. The first thing I say when I go into there, I go, everything in here is monitored, even though you're in a sealed, electromagnetically sealed space. Because there are technologies the organization you're worried about, just now learning about, have that can penetrate space-time and extract anything going on without normal electromagnetic field. And this is the physics that we understand. Is very advanced, and it's certainly off the radar of the normal briefings that Senate Intelligence or Armed Services or the president gets. So this is another disadvantage, is that the organization that is keeping all this secret, they have surveillance technologies, not just offensive weaponry and craft and man-made UFOs, which are the majority of the ones people see, by the way. They have these amazing abilities to penetrate any point in space or time and extract any intelligence or information from that volume of space and time. And they are not normal National Security Agency signals intelligence, or SIGINT. It's very advanced tech. So this gets into another disadvantage, and that is the element of surprise can't happen. So ultimately, knowledge is power. So government officials having the knowledge about this, and then knowing what tools in their toolkit they have and which ones are in the gray area, perhaps, of legality that need to be used, that I won't talk about here. How do you fix this problem? And most importantly, you always have the rule of law. So, ultimately, civilization is the foundation of it, is that we collectively agree to live in a system that has certain rules and laws and what have you. And there are tools in the Department of Justice and FBI and federal marshals and Pentagon criminal investigative divisions that can bring brought to bear on illegal operations that involve in the embezzlement of huge sums of federal funds, and that would also stop the worst offenses going on that include the targeting and downing of innocent ET craft that are here to protect us, quite frankly. And then more importantly, or equally importantly, is the use of these same advanced platforms. They're called ATs, advanced technology. They used to be called ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles, that are being used to target, kidnap, abduct humans, but also do human experimentation. We know where some of this is going on. We have whistleblowers in those systems, and this has also been handed over to law enforcement.